Hello, friends.
Hello.
It's live. We're live.
Live.
We're not the other thing. We're not undead. We're live. It's usually when you see us on here,
Oh,
we were pre-recorded, and
Yeah. But
now
now
we're
we're doing
not.
it. We're doing it live.
we
So
cannot screw up, which I'm
Yeah.
sure we won't.
I think
But
I just I
just
think
so
I
you
just
know, this
did.
is unedited and
I
impromptu.
I promise not to flub my Can I do that again? Hold on.
Did you just
I
say
pr-
"but"?
I promise not to flub my line.
Oh
I
no,
mean my lines.
lines. So,
Line.
so the big topic today, and I think everyone should join in and post their comments about this. Whoever's there. So, and first, yes, we would like to say before we even start is please like and comment and subscribe.
Subscribe.
Subscribe, please subscribe. Then you won't
Yeah.
miss, like, when we go live, you get this big notification saying
Right.
live, and you go, oh my god, I need to rush in and look at them.
And there's a
Yeah.
little bell down there too that you can get alerts. Whenever we post something new, you get a little ding and you can go check it out immediately.
Exactly. So
Yes.
this is always really fun because I love talking to people when they show up. So this will be really cool. So
Yeah.
we thought this would be a good way to do our year-end wrap-up of some of the best shit we've seen this year.
Yeah, 2021.
Yes. And we've seen a lot, and we've seen a lot of older stuff, and so of course we're not going to kind of excise some of that. We're trying to focus on the stuff that was produced this year or like last year and was released this year. Kind of like what they do for normal top 10 lists. So we're each
Yeah.
going to pick 3 of our favorite either movies or series or anything that we saw this year and discuss it. And if there's anybody out there that wants to share some of their favorite movies or streaming service series, please comment and we'll talk about it. You know?
Yes, for
Okay.
sure. Okay.
Well,
So who
I'll
wants-
I'll start. I'll just do my number 3, and we'll just
Okay.
sort of work. And this year, there's a lot of big stuff that we saw, but I'm going to kind of focus on smaller movies and these are the ones that I still think about, after I've seen them, and that always sticks with me. And I go, why does this movie stick with me? It must be something I really think about and liked. So, number 3 is a film called Old Henry. That was a Western directed by Patsy Pansaroli, who we actually had on as a guest. And
Yeah.
please check out the interview. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
It
it was
stars
really
Tim-
good.
Yeah.
It was super interesting just to see how a film like this was made because it's very small. It was mostly on one location, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It is. And it stars Tim Blake Nelson as this farmer, and he's got a son, and something happens, and he basically has to protect his farm and his son from these 3 bad guys. One of them, Stephen Dorff, who's the lead there. You see him right there.
Yeah.
And the whole movie takes place, and it's very it sets the scene great, and it's kind of a contained thriller because it basically takes place at his farm.
Yeah.
And it's really well directed by Pansaroli. It's really well acted. Tim Blake Nelson is a great actor, and he really brings it here. And it's super exciting, intense. And it was filmed in just a couple of weeks, back in eastern Tennessee, but it looks like the West. I mean, so to make a movie that really sort of captures something and do it on a low budget in a few weeks, and it makes President Obama's top 10 list, which is kind of impressive. So
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It was very, very cool that he did that. And I like that he picked a little movie.
Yeah.
it's a movie that could be made for who knows what the budget is, but it's not a big budget.
No.
I'm sure everybody did for scale, and it really is something that if you haven't seen it, it's out there. You can rent it. You can see it on Amazon or whatever, or Apple. Check it out because it's well worth it. It's really exciting, and I thought, hey, I'm going to put that on as a number 3 for me. So there you go.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
I
I
love
really
it.
liked it. Burke, what's yours?
Well, I like that one too. I'm gonna reiterate that, but I thought it was a classic Western. It's up there with some of the great Westerns. It's a slow burn, but it's not boring. It's not one of those movies that seems to be sort of self-conscious about its long shots and long stretches. It puts you in the place. There's a difference between just filler and actual service to the story shots that those long pensive moments where there's a reason why you're lingering on something, and it makes you think. It's a thoughtful movie, and the characters are so real. You know, you can. Potsy was telling us about how Tim Blake Nelson really researched his character and, you know, sort of got into the you know, the way they talked back then, or the way they, at least as far as we know, because there's not many recordings, but
Yeah.
but as far as, you know, when you read the letters that they wrote to each other and how they use language and things like that, you kind of have to assume maybe that's how they spoke. And it's the attention to that kind of detail, instead of having the characters talking in a very contemporary way, it puts you in the time, and it sort of puts you in a feel of those times. And like Mark was saying, it's a contained drama, it's a contained thriller. So what you're feeling is the fact of those times where you were separated from other, you know, you can't just call the police and they're there in 3 minutes. You can't pick up your cell phone and call the cops or the fire department or whatever.
Yeah.
You're on your own. If some bad guys come to your house, you got to figure it out.
Right.
And getting that feel across, I think, is something that this movie did really well.
And Stephen Dorff is a great sort of smart kind of bad guy. And he has this sense of, you know, there's something, he's ready to go off, but he's trying to be nice about it at first, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just, you have to watch the movie of what's going on. There's some great twists and turns, and it's just really just smart from the get-go and well made.
Yeah.
And I would like to add the movie Saint Maude to my list too. That was I guess a
Fantastic.
horror film and a very bizarre study of someone's, you know, I think like a mental illness kind of a thing, which is always interesting. You kind of wonder a lot with a lot of horror movies, am I watching a horror film or am I watching something from the point of view of a character who has a mental illness? You know,
they really tread that line really well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's who directed it? It was a female director.
Rose Glass. That's her
Rose Glass.
first film,
Great
I believe.
name.
And and it's really
I loved how
beautiful.
you were sympathetic with Maude,
yeah,
and but you knew she had problems. I mean, she was just hyper judgmental and super religious, but you did kind of feel for her. You felt like she was trying to cope with something, and that was her only way. Like that, and even the character they introduced her to, the woman who's dying of cancer, who was very colorful and great. Like she was a really cool character on her own, and she was into the whole theater scene, and she had this really great character, and she had all these cool friends that would come over and, you know, visit her, and I loved how they did that, because you cared about both characters, but you saw the trouble brewing with a lot of that.
and we
I
sort
have a
of see
little
Maude.
I have a little clip from Maude, just so we can watch a little piece of it, because it's just beautifully shot, and it probably had one of the coolest endings I think I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Dear God.
So, you know, you see just how beautifully it's shot. Just really warm and dark and like sort of creepy, and I don't know, it just had a really great feel to it.
Yeah, it was it's one of those movies that you think about, like Mark was saying, that movies that stay with you. That one comes back to me every so often, and I feel like maybe I want to see it again one of these days. And the actress who played Maude was really great, and
her
so
name
good.
is Morfydd Clark.
Yeah.
I think it's how you pronounce. I'm not sure if I'm wrong on the first name, but Welsh actress. She's great, and Jennifer Eel is
good.
as Amanda. So they're just really good actors.
A really small film, but just just really tight. Like you don't look at it and go, wow, that's really low budget. Like it just was gorgeous.
And that's a hard kind of a character to play for the Morfydd. What her name is? Morfydd, I think.
Morfydd Clark. Yeah.
Clark, and that kind of character to stay consistently a certain way through a film, and to not reveal yourself, you know, as an actor, and to not to make her be something that she isn't consistently through. You know, like she isn't suddenly funny in one scene or something else. She is Maude through the whole film, and that's hard to maintain for a character that's so unusual and so probably, I mean, hopefully very much not like what the actress is like in her real life.
But you almost believe she is. You're watching it thinking she was so natural that it seemed that. Oh, and I want to pop in a little comment. So Catherine, she thought Unhinged was great, and I even from the trailer, that's the Russell Crowe Road Rage film.
Oh,
It just
Yeah.
looked way too close to home for me. Like I couldn't even
Yeah.
watching the trailer, I couldn't deal with the idea of seeing the full film because I feel like I'm always on the verge of that no matter where I
Yeah.
go in LA. You feel like anyone could go postal at any moment and you just never know. It could be something you don't even realize you did. Even though
Yeah.
this woman in this film did something kind of, she cut him off and flipped him off and she's being
Right.
she kind of asked for it.
Oh, did you see it? Because I started watching the
I
first
haven't seen it.
15
I just saw
minutes.
the trailer. I couldn't deal.
The woman's with her little kid, and I know that Russell Crowe is somewhere out there, and I just I said I can't watch this because it's going to get me too nerve wracking.
It's
So
too
I turned it
scary.
off. Yeah.
Well, it's too close to reality too. There was a story
Yeah.
recently, not too long ago, about a guy who, somebody cut a guy off or something, or changed lanes in a way he didn't like, and he ended up just
Mhm.
firing a gun into the car
Yeah.
and killed somebody, killed a little kid,
My
and it's like
God.
that stuff happens.
It's
So,
just
yeah.
creepy.
Yeah. So
Um,
when I'm in the mood for it, I think I will certainly watch
Yeah.
the rest of it because but you have to kind of gird your loins. for
Yeah.
that.
Yes. And speaking of girding, so one of my great films I had to gird myself for was the Power of the Dog, which was
Ah,
when we first started watching. I started watching this with my mom, and it was so stressful in the first few minutes that I'm like, I can't deal with this movie. So we kind of turned it off. And I actually had to go back and check it out because I love Jane Campion. The Piano is still one of my favorite films. And I think it's because it's so complex and she just shoots beautifully. Like her stuff, it's so authentic. And I just felt like this didn't feel like a movie. It felt like I was seeing something real. Like I liked how everything was kind of dirty and a little bit grimy. Didn't have the kind of Western sometimes where everybody looks like everything's washed and everybody's, perfectly coiffed. It's like everybody looked kind of sweaty and uncomfortable and dirty. And, it's like, I just thought this was a beautiful film, but it is not easy to watch and it's really grim. But I have to say, Benedict Cumberbatch in this film, he plays this total toxic asshole. Like
Yeah.
he's like the patriarchal, dominator in every scene. Then we actually meet his parents, and then you actually kind of hear a little more his backstory. I don't know how actors do this. You see his bravado, but you see this weird pain, and you start realizing that all of this is like so many times, like with bullies, it's sort of because they're in pain and trying to cover up and push it away that they react against people. So you start
Yeah.
seeing him expressing. He almost starts seeming more and more sympathetic and pitiful, even though he's a terrible person, because you start
Yeah.
realizing he's doing it because he's hurt and he's had to. I don't want to give away any spoilers because
Yeah,
he's
he's
just
got
need to
issues.
watch this. But yeah, he's got issues, and there's a lot of secrets everyone's hiding, and whenever you're hiding secrets or trying to push away who you are or swallow pain and trauma, it's expressed in terrible ways like addiction or abuse or different
Mhm.
ways that people react to it. But I just
And
thought it
in
was
those
such a
days,
beautiful, sensitive film.
those were big issues in those days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
In that environment too.
Yeah. And it
Yes.
says a lot because they have some kind of nasty animal stuff in this, and I cannot
Yeah.
deal with animals. So the fact I stuck with it, even though there's just a really awful scene in it that has to do, I mean, nothing died, but it was pretty gross mutilation.
Yeah,
There's
you
some
don't need
things, a couple things die in this.
Yeah, there's some death.
Yeah.
But
Kinda
it's
castration.
so powerful, the power of the dog, that I couldn't take my eyes off it once I got
Yeah.
in there. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful film. She's an amazing, filmmaker. I think world class. But it starts as a kind of a relationship between Cumberbatch's character and Jesse Plemons, the brothers, and then it sort of morphs into Kirsten Dunst marries Plemons' character and
Yeah.
becomes kind of this thing in the house. And then it turns into something else, the relationship between Cumberbatch
Yeah.
and Kirsten Dunst's son. So it
Yeah.
sort of changes and morphs into something else as the movie goes on, but it's compelling the whole way through.
And just Campion's an amazing director. And I almost see this as a companion to The Piano, where it has to do with these pseudo-sexual relationships that, I mean, Piano, same thing. This woman marries this man. She's taken to where he lives, and she's kind of trying to adapt the way he wants her to be as a wife. And nobody's really sure what, what to do. And The Piano is just so beautiful, but it's also super grim. It has just this super traumatic ending. And this was sort of similar to that, where it's not as much about Rose, but it kind of is, because she's a woman stuck in the middle of this hyper masculine environment. There's barely any other women, and the women that are there, the maids, are just kind of like they just don't even register. They're
Right.
just kind of that's their whole job, is to be kind of invisible. So here's Rose going, oh, what am I doing here? Like, she's like invaded the space of these men. So, but Piano is very similar to that.
All right,
Cameo.
Power of the Dog. So we got Old Henry, Power of the Dog, Saint Maud,
Yep.
all movies
Yep.
worth seeing.
Definitely.
I'll go with my next, and this one is another small film. This is starring Nicolas Cage. It's called Pig, directed by Michael Sarnowski. He also wrote it. And so, Nicolas Cage, we're Nicolas Cage fans, and usually his stuff lately, he's just over the top with bravado. Here, it's exactly the opposite. He's very quiet. He barely says anything. He's a truffle hunter, and he loves his pig. And his pig gets kidnapped early on, and he wants to go back into the city to get his pig back. So it starts like it's going to be some sort of revenge thing where, kind of like he's going to go John Wick, but it's not that at all. It's a slow, kind of strange film.
Yep.
But his performance is so raw, and you feel for him so much in this.
Yeah.
At least I did. That I said, this guy is a great actor. When he wants to be subtle, and he just with his face, and there's a couple of scenes they both, and since he's a former chef, like a chef in Portland, and now he lives in the Oregon woods, two of the best scenes happen at a dining table. One where he's at a restaurant. Alex Wolff from Hereditary is like his kind of his business partner, and they sort of meet the chef, and something happens there, and it's really interesting. And then at the end of the movie, it's Alex Wolff's dad, played by Adam Arkin, and there's another dinner that actually Nick Cage's character makes, and there's something very emotional about that, and not a lot is said. And I just thought the movie stuck with me. I thought it was brilliant. I think he will get an Academy Award nomination, even though it's a small film. And I was very psyched to see that, because a lot of the movies he's made because of financial situations have been these kind of goofy movies. Some have been really fun. Mandy's been interesting. The Color Out of Space. Color Out of Space was great. But there's been a lot of kind of dirgy stuff too. But
he's having fun.
Yeah.
But and the new one coming out looks really fun too. But this is him really being serious and slow, and I was very emotionally moved by his performance.
Yeah.
So Pig.
Yeah. It's I went into this with trepidation because, like I said, anything with animals,
I know.
it's a problem. So it's hard for me to get past it. But I did end up watching this movie, and I really liked it, but it's just so sad. And, everything about, I like this tenderness, like where it kind of ends up, but the whole thing is just so sad, but beautifully acted, really like just delicate, and it's never overplayed. And Nick Cage is super toned down, Nick Cage, but it's hard. It's hard for me to like, because
I know
they make that pig so cute. And I love the scene where he's, Alex Wolff asks him, like, why are we doing all this? Like, what, just because he finds out truffles can be found just by the kind of trees that they grow under. And he's like, because I love her. And I thought,
that is the movie. It's like,
God.
He's not going to the pig because it helps. He doesn't need the pig to find
it doesn't need it. Yeah.
He does it because he loves that pig. And that was
so sad.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
But I thought it was great. And I hope he gets an
great.
Academy Award. I'll vote for him.
You're gonna vote for him?
I'll vote for him. One of my votes.
Mark's gonna vote.
Yeah.
Burk?
Well, I'm gonna bring up something that's a series. It's not a movie, but I'm gonna bring up two all in one.
Two.
But you guys, no secret that I really like the Marvel stuff. I like the Marvel cinematic universe. I like the way the stories intertwine, and I like the way things that happened, back in the early 2000s are now sort of becoming ripe on the vine in these stories. And they're like, wow, that goes back to that, and this goes back to this. And when that happened, we're seeing another angle on it in the stories. We see so many different points of view with these characters, and some of the major events in the Marvel films, like, when Thanos snapped his finger and half of everybody in the universe disappeared, how that affected different aspects of the story, and how the attack on New York affected everything. And so there's two series that play into that idea where we're seeing another angle on something that happened during these big events in the Marvel films. And so, this year we saw Loki, the series, which was just a strange Marvel take.
I never
it was,
saw it, but it seemed really,
well,
really
it's,
strange.
it's Tom Hiddleston, the guy who plays Loki, is so great. He is this Loki character. And even though he did these terrible things, he tried to destroy the planet Earth, first of all, and take over. He sort of comes back around and you're like, he's all right. He's a good guy. We like him. We want him to, he's funny. And so in the series, you're on his side, and you're realizing there's a couple of scenes in there where you realize kind of like why he felt compelled to destroy the Earth. It's like, he has issues, and it's okay. But it's funny. It's a funny series. It's one of the more humorous corners of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And,
Richard E. Grant is funny in it. I mean,
oh yeah,
and
Yeah.
I'll just bust in and say, out of all the Marvel series, I won't talk about the films, but the series, this feels the most like the comic books that I remember.
yes, yeah.
It has a very Jack Kirby,
I was going to say that. Yeah,
colorful vibe to
See
it.
that.
So if you're an old fan of the old Marvel comics, especially the ones from the 70s, this will hit a certain edge. Hit a button that will work for you. So,
and there's just these outrageous things that happen in there. You're like, what the hell am I seeing here? And but it still has this thread of of the Loki character, and you have what's his name, Owen Wilson, who is hilarious in it, of course, and the interaction between those two, between Loki and him, they're so funny together. And the other Marvel series, which I don't think we're done with, I think we still have some more episodes left to go, but so far it's really good, is Hawkeye, which is another type of film. And that's another thing I like about the Marvel stuff, is each thing they do seems to be from a different genre. The Hawkeye series it's kind of a gangster street level. There's some that are street level, there's some that are cosmic, and yet they tie them together so well. There's these street level things going on, and then suddenly you realize, okay, Hawkeye has been on another planet and actually had to sacrifice his friend to get an Infinity Stone that sent them back. They went back in time. All these radically weird Marvel style things that they've been through. But here he is, having to deal with the tracksuit mafia, and trying to get a suit, a costume back from them, and he has to do it all in 6 days so he can go back and be with his family for Christmas like he promised. And it's so fun. Jeremy Renner is in it, and the young actress who plays his protege,
Hallie Steinfeld. She's great.
She's really fun. Yeah, she's really good. She's a comic book style character. The characters are a bit broad, she's not like your average person. She's a super talented martial arts and archery, and everything she does, she's great at it, but you believe it. She's cool. She handles it well. And there's some other characters in there that cross over with the Black Widow film, and crossovers with, of course, with the Avengers films. There's one great scene where we see the big attack on New York thing, which Loki started, from the point of view of somebody who's in an apartment looking out the window, and they're like, what the hell is happening? New York is being attacked by some kind of weird things on these flying machines. And she sort of watches, she sees something happening on a building, and it's Hawkeye. And he happens to do something really heroic right near her place. And she sees this, and she's like, that's what I want to be. And
That's cute.
it's pretty fun. She sees this heroic moment, and she's like, becomes
be a
obsessed
hero.
with Hawkeye. Yeah. So Hawkeye and Loki are fun, two fun things that I think are, if you're into the Marvel stuff, into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, these play really well into it. They don't seem phony. They don't seem like they were tacked on or gratuitous or anything. It seems like a genuine you wonder about, when the snap happened and Hawkeye became Ronin and did all these questionably ethically questionable things. What was going on in his mind? What was his motivation? He thought half the world was gone. He thought his family had been taken and all this kind of stuff. So he became this vengeful, dark thing, and he addresses that. So it's kind of fun. If you're into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I recommend both of those series, but you don't need my recommendation because 10 billion people are already watching.
I would say if you're into Marvel, you've probably already seen it.
You've already seen them. You're way ahead of me. You're like, yeah,
You're
shut up.
definitely
Shut
seen
up.
them.
Shut up. Tell us something else.
But they're completely different. Loki is way out there,
Yeah.
and Hawkeye is much more grounded, much more like Daredevil or Jessica Jones, those kind of things, So,
But somehow they make them work together
Yeah,
in the same
they
world
do.
because they do
They do.
bring in moments from those other
Right.
radical non-street level things.
right,
Like the Daredevil show and those other ones, Jessica Jones, those are all street level, which is cool. That exists still in the world. But then there's also, people talk about Thanos, every once in a while he takes a sip out of a mug and you'd barely see it, but the mug says Thanos was right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's some people who think Thanos was right, and you're thinking, oh, we kind of live in that world where
yeah.
where there's this horrible thing that some people believe in, and we kind of live in that. Every once in a while we see something, we're like, oh, wait a minute, there are people who root for the bad guy.
So,
that's-
but I like that ambiguity.
Yeah.
I like, and a lot of times I will sympathize with the bad guys, and that's sort of my problem.
Yeah.
I tend to, I always think, yeah, humans don't deserve to be saved. Look what they did.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what Thanos was saying. He's like, we
Right,
don't need to save these
exactly.
people because look what they did.
Well, one thing that people don't mention about Thanos, and I'll say it right here. One thing people don't mention is the fact that Thanos himself seemed to be immune from his snap. When he did they call it the blip. When he
Yeah.
destroyed half of every living thing, it didn't include him. So
Right.
that sort of he got to live on this beautiful planet, making his soup or whatever he was doing. And until the Avengers showed up and cut off his head, but he did survive the blip, and he
That's
knew
true.
he would survive it, and he
Yeah.
he had the Infinity Gauntlet, and he had this he could go to whatever planet he wanted. He went to the garden. His daughter says, "Oh, he always said that when he did the thing, he would go to the garden." So he got to go to his retirement home and live out his life in this beautiful landscape, and
Plus, he looked like Josh Brolin, so he was
Yeah.
handsome. He had a lot going for him.
It's worse things.
yeah.
Looking like
Picking those big durians and making whatever kind of soup he was making. I don't know. Looked good. It looked good,
I have to say, and this could be my number one, but I'm going to throw it in here because we're talking about series. But I have to say, one of the best things I've seen this year is probably Midnight Mass.
Oh.
I just thought there was so much greatness in this Mike Flanagan series. That he just really built this world. I really cared about these characters. I especially love Hamish Linklater as the priest who comes to, he's replacing
Yeah.
the old priest, but there's just something off about him, and he's very charming to some, but not to others. So
Yeah.
I just thought there was so much greatness in this, and I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't want it to end, but I did love the ending. It ended on a really subtle sort of note that kind of summed everything up. But if you weren't really paying attention, you wouldn't know that because there's a big unanswered question, and they answer it with this little tiny moment, and you're like,
Yeah.
But just a great series. It's like
Agreed.
there's a little bit of there were some issues, a little bit about the old age makeup was a little obvious.
Yeah.
But I went with it because I knew they wanted to do something with it. But it's just really unusual. I don't even want to say too much about it because part of it's just a surprise. But definitely worth seeing, definitely fantastic. And we're huge Mike Flanagan fans here. I mean, I pretty much, I just heard he's doing another series or his Haunting of Hill House series. I think what is the new one? It's House of Usher. So he's doing a new series, House of
okay.
Usher. So, the fact that you have him in the world just makes things better.
Yeah. I liked that series too, but I didn't love it as much as I've loved some of his other stuff, or I felt like it didn't quite have the depth or something. I don't know. It just I I enjoyed the idea of a story that takes place on this island. You know, it's sort of an isolation horror kind of thing where it takes you forever, and you have to wait for the boat to get back to the mainland, and
Yeah.
that solves one of the problems that we have with horror now is that everybody has a cell phone. Everybody is immediately connectable to the police or
Yeah.
whatever. But if you're on an island, you know, it's different. And especially if the police on that island are, you know, part of this conspiracy or whatever.
Or it's just one person, you know.
Or just one
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Because there's
who's-
not any crime because there's like 10 people live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
it's,
yeah, go ahead.
it had to me, I watched the whole thing and enjoyed it. But I felt after it was over, I felt like, it wasn't quite what I was hoping for. I don't know.
I just thought there were scenes that shouldn't have worked were so, to me, riveting. Like there's a scene between Amish Linkletter and now I can't remember his name, the young guy who's our protagonist.
Right.
They're sitting in a room together, and Hamish
Zach
Linkletter is
Guilford.
trying to Zach. They're trying to explain what the situation is, and it's just them sitting in this sort of church social center, just an empty room with 2 chairs. So amazing. Like, and I kept
Yeah.
looking in the background because, you know, Flanagan does that, but I could not get enough of that. I mean, just Linkletter is so compelling. Like he's like, oh, I'm a cute dork. And then, you know, there's just this underlying like creepiness. And you're kind of going, yeah, I want to trust this guy, but I don't know. And even just a scene where he and the woman he used to be romantically involved with, she's actually married to Mike Flanagan, but they had a great scene where they talked about what they thought happened when they died. And I thought that was a really cool, really well written scene about how people's different philosophies about that. And that to me, enjoying these long scenes of dialogue, which you don't really get in movies very often because they're trying to speed everything up and it all has to be action. I thought it was really cool to just luxuriate in these long discussions people were having, really smart people talking. Really enjoyed that aspect.
It got into the religion stuff, you know.
Yeah.
The actor who played the priest, I thought, really nailed that that type of character. I grew up around the you know, in the South, around the Bible Belt, right in the middle of the Bible Belt and all that. So I remember at the Christian school, the Southern Baptist school that I went to for a while, there were these guys who were the father so and so who was considered cool, you know, and he was trying to be, he was like, you know, he was like the guy that was going to rap with the kids and get down with the kids. He played a guitar. He knew some,
Kind of
he
a
knew some
hippie
songs.
priest. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew some
Exactly.
songs by the.
I love
by
the cool young priest.
He knew some songs by the Beatles, but don't totally approve of everything they talk about, man. But some of their stuff is beautiful. But and there was all this kind of like trying to appeal to the young people, and I thought the guy who played the priest in this got that kind of.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
good.
It was kind of sincere, but kind of insincere, and
Yep.
and kind of you like him. You can't help but like him because he's being so friendly and cool with you,
Yeah.
and it seems like he's being honest. But then there's something underneath, of course.
Yep.
And there is something underneath this
Yeah.
one for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I thought it was a great series. We
Yeah.
are big Flanagan fans, as you said.
Yeah.
Good one. Well, before I talk about my favorite movie, I'll mention, I'll do an honorable mention. This is a film I didn't talk about, but this is a French film called Meandra that we watched this year. If you remember that one with Gaia Weiss, and she's stuck in, I love stuff like that, I love it. And I thought that one was that was really good and interesting. And I mean, it was a very physical part for her, and she pulled it off, and it was claustrophobic. So I'll just say that as one that I go, that was a movie I
Interesting
really liked.
choice.
That's an
And,
honorable mention for me too. I think that was
Yeah.
a strange movie, very weird.
Yeah, it was good, and it's not really kind of came and went, but I thought it was quite well done.
And we had different interpretations of that one, which is interesting. It's like I saw it one way, and I think Kathy saw it a different way. And I like the idea that a movie can do that. It's like
Is it a sci-fi thing? Is it real,
Right.
sort of something that could really happen? Who knows? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, my number one film is a Danish film starring Mads Mikkelsen, who is great, of course, in Hannibal and other films. And the film is called Riders of Justice. And this is a movie that's very hard to quantify. What is this movie? It starts out as a revenge thriller. And you'll see this scene where basically his character's wife dies in a train accident. He comes back to seek revenge. But it's also the story of this group of statisticians who figure out with math and with numbers, and this is the part that was really fascinating. Maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe this was something that was planned. So they joined together to try to figure out what really happened. So it's a mystery, but there's also weird parts of real humor. The characters are funny, and it's just so strange to see a revenge thriller with some really dark, torture type stuff in here, but with real humor. And I thought the screenplay was brilliant. I thought it was like, how are they pulling this off? And a lot of reviewers say, we don't know what we're watching here, but we love it. You're seeing something you have never seen before. And I really recommend this film. And I didn't think about it for a while. Then I rewatched it again. And I know it starts off very grim, but it does change into something else. But it keeps its intensity. And it's a very challenging film, really interesting, fun, has all those things together. So, and Mads Mikkelsen is a great lead.
I love him.
So good in this because somehow he pulls off this hard kind of, soldier coming back to figure out what happened to his wife, but he's also somehow funny in it. And these other characters are funny. So
I like the science nerds.
Yeah.
Oh, they're great. They're great. Like Nikolai Lee Kass plays the head guy, and he's all about numbers. He comes in early on. He goes, "This wasn't a train accident."
I love that.
And he was at what happened. I'll just tell you the first 10 minutes. He's sitting down in the train. The wife and daughter come in, and he sees that there's no place for the wife to sit. So he gets up, says, "Why don't you take my seat?" And so she sits down. 5 seconds later, they die. The people on the, just that corner die. He lives, his daughter lives. So he feels this guilt, but he sees some things happening in the train, but right before that makes him question whether this was an accident. So it is a mystery and very smart, very brilliant.
I'm going to watch that. That sounds great.
I love Mads Mikkelsen. I've loved him ever since Hannibal and probably before that because of Casino Royale, but he's such an interesting actor. He brings so much like intelligence and gravitas to anything he's doing. Even when he's being funny, you just believe him. He's so powerful. Yeah. Even when he's a flawed person. I mean, how could you not sort of love Hannibal? You shouldn't. He's cannibal. He's killing people. He's a horrible person. But for some reason, he was very, very, very intriguing and likable.
Well, another round he plays a drunk, and he's incredibly likable, and that's a Danish film that I also highly recommend. He's just a great actor. I think he is a world-class leading man, and he shows it in this. And even though it's a quiet part, he looks older because he's got this gray beard.
Yeah.
But I can't stop thinking about the movie, and I watched it again last night. I'm going, damn, this is really a great film.
Wow,
I
think they're going to check that out.
I think they're going to remake it and probably ruin it as an American, remake. It's just not going to hit. Somehow it just works in the Danish language. I don't know how to explain it, but that's my number one film of the year.
Wow, number one, crazy.
My favorite.
Should I go with my number one?
Yeah.
I am going to go with the typical thing that you could probably guess what my number one is. I really liked what is it called? Oh yeah, Dune. Yeah, big surprise.
It's also my number one. Absolutely, 100%.
Big surprise, but it just, I just have always loved this book ever since I picked it up when I was in high school and started reading page one. I was absorbed into this whole world, and it's not just the desert planet. It's like the characters and the politics. And people say, oh, it's politics, but then that sounds really boring. It makes you not want to read the story or watch the movie. Mm-hmm. But it makes the idea of all the interactions between things and how this can't function without that. And Frank Herbert was really good about, he was way ahead of his time as far as the environment and all that. And there's a lot of environmental issues in these movies. When he wrote the book, it wasn't as, it was, but it wasn't quite as urgent as it is today. We hadn't abused our environment as much as we have at this point back then. But there were people who were way ahead of it and thinking, you know what, if we keep going down this path, someday we're going to have a problem.
That's right.
And that's a thing that you see in his stories and some of the things, not necessarily overtly, but it's pretty overt what you're seeing when you watch Dune. You're seeing people's resources being exploited. You're seeing an environment being sort of damaged and polluted with this and that. You see corruption in politics. You see people who want to make money off of the substance that's being pulled out of the ground, and it's deep, it's heavy, it's fascinating, and Denis Villeneuve really he really gets it, and I think he really gets science fiction. His movies, the Arrival and the Blade Runner sequel, I think are just great. I really love his science fiction. I love I love the way he takes things into a different style territory too. I think we've talked about Dune before on here, but one of the things that I love about it is the production design. I feel like I've never seen a movie with spaceships before. It's like, wow, the spaceships, how cool. And what's interesting? I read something that he said. He said, I didn't want to show people at a control panel. I didn't want to see people in the cockpit or inside the spaceship. And I realized it's like, oh yeah, you don't see people inside the spaceship. You just see these things. It's almost like now showing people like, oh, we're going to take a trip to Europe. You would just show, you wouldn't have to show them getting into the airplane and sitting in their seat and putting the tray table down. You don't have to see all that stuff. And in Dune, it's like you get the feeling that spaceships are common. Why do we need to see the inside of it? It's like that's typical everyday stuff for these people.
Right.
And everything was really real and used and lived in and functional and not decorative. There were just decorative things, of course, but the style of it was beautiful, and the cast was great.
Amazing. Like I feel like there wasn't a wasted shot in this entire film. Like everything was thought out. Like, even when you see these clips, everything's gorgeous. Everything has something special in it. There's not a single thing where you feel like it's just sort of in between the cool scenes. Everything was friggin' thought out and gorgeous. And I couldn't get enough of this movie. And I'm not like a huge Dune aficionado. I did not like the David Lynch version. I don't remember the books. I read them, but barely remember them. But this is like, it was so astounding and overwhelming. And I saw this, of course, because there are no good theaters open at the time. I was blown away by this on my TV, and I was like, oh, this is a movie I really, really, really want to catch up on in the theater, because I want this thing to be around me. I want it just to envelop me, because I just want to be part of this film. It was absolutely blew me away. I think I sat there with my mouth open half the time because it's so gorgeous. And
that's
also,
how
I don't feel like the actors disappeared either. Like it'd be
Right.
easy in a big spectacle that the actors disappear, but it's like Timothée Chalamet. I mean, this guy, like, he's got so much charisma. Like he totally felt like a little prince, but he was very capable. So he had this sort of underlying strength, but he looked so like waifish, but he definitely had it going on. And I loved when he was trying to learn to use his voice, the special voice. Amazing. Just so great.
And everybody else, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin. I mean, it's a hell of a cast. Even Jason Momoa is in it for a bit.
Yeah.
It's just a huge cast, and they're all good.
Yeah.
So,
It's a great cast. I want to go back to Timothée Chalamet, though, because that's a character who's so important. When you read the books, the first two books anyway, Paul Atreides. It's funny. I read the books, and I always said Atreides. So I always think of him as Paul Atreides, but Atreides, and the planet Arrakis, which I used to call Arrakis, but now it's called Arrakis. But reading it, you pronounce it how you want in your head. But the character
do that for you. It'll never be Arrakis for you, Burk. Let's be
Right.
I don't know how to pronounce any of it, so I'm not even going to try.
But Paul Atreides is a character that is hard. He's hard to define in a lot of ways in the book, because he's supposed to be, he's supposed to be a thing, but it turns out that he's kind of not the thing. The one, there's usually these stories about, oh, you're the chosen one, and you find out that you have these astounding powers, and there's some kind of magical thing that gave you these powers and made you the prophet, or made you the superhero, or whatever. But in the Dune stories, it's so heartbreaking, because you kind of realize, because of the machinations of these religious groups and whatever, that he was kind of a fabricated thing. He's a concept, and he kind of like, he's like, I was made to discover that you're the product of something, of a plan that's been going on for thousands of years or whatever.
Hi, India.
And hello to our
Saying
friends
hi
in
to India. Pratiksha.
Pratiksha.
Hello. We're
Hello.
not saying your name. I'm so sorry. But
We
hello.
probably say it. Did we say it right?
Speaking of, since India is here,
Yeah.
there is a movie. I'm going to put it on my list. It's not out yet.
Yeah, it comes out in
Well,
early
the
January.
trailer can go on
The
our
trailer
list.
is one of the best things I've seen this year. So I'm just going to put a little bit of it up here because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
This is this is a new film that's about to come out called RRR.
Yeah.
Resist, Roar, Revolt.
Right.
This thing looks so epic, so incredible. I don't think people realize how incredibly lush Indian films can be.
Yeah.
So since we've just started watching Indian films lately, in depth, and we're looking at a lot of trailers. We're getting a lot of people asking us to cover trailers. Look at this. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Look at that.
I
That-
just
it
love how this
Woo.
looks. And look, this looks like another one of those like no wasted frames in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
like
there's dancing and
there's
and,
dancing and there's probably singing.
yeah.
It's very epic. It's just like every penny is on screen. And it's coming out early January, and it is, thanks to our friends commenting from India, we can see it here at a big theater in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah.
So that's something we want to do and talk about
Yeah.
it because and there's so many other Indian films, and we're starting to do that. And there's a long list on our queue of things to get to, and be patient. We will get to them. It's just, fitting them all in, but they all are interesting and fun. And it's a new world for us.
Yeah,
It
it's
just
like a
looks
big
so
doorway
fun.
opened up. It's very cool stuff. It's just like
Very cool stuff. And just lots of gorgeous, production value and great slow motion.
Yeah.
Everything looks so epic. So funny. And this is Tollywood, not Bollywood, by the way.
Yes,
Right.
and that's the other thing we
I see
learned is like there's
shot here.
many
Right.
different film and industries in India, and there's different languages, and so
Yeah.
that's stuff that we've been learning. And thanks again to our friends to sort of comment about that and
Yes.
fill us in. So
Yeah.
yes, there's Bollywood, Tollywood, Sandalwood, Collywood. It just it's
and
it's a
maybe
thing.
even some we don't know about yet.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I'm
That's
sure
true.
there are.
I know. So I just wanted to put that as an honorable mention as something that's not out yet because it just looks really fun and great escapism and just crazy. Oh, I think there's this scene here. Let me see if I can get it up here. Yeah, this motorcycle scene. Like, what is happening? Ah, there you go.
Yeah. And some people, didn't like my comment saying that, maybe that couldn't happen.
Well,
But
because
it's
it was so dumb to say.
it's a very light motorcycle. Okay,
Well, I saw Captain America do something very similar to that, so I think it is possible.
It is possible.
Yeah.
So that's something I saw this year. Granted, it's just like basically super early trailer. It comes out next year. I'm sure there will be tons more. We have a review of this film on our trailer reaction on our channel. You guys should watch the whole thing.
Check it out.
Super fun, and read some of the comments because there's some great information in the comments about the trailer too. So you should definitely do that.
And when
And
it comes
actually-
out, we're gonna
It's
watch the
actually
heck
only
out of
like
it.
3 weeks away. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that's
far,
true. It's
so
not far.
Yeah, but so we are going to make a Cinemondo field trip, and maybe even have our own microphone, and maybe ask some people what they thought about it after the
Yeah,
film.
that would be
Something
super
like that.
fun.
Yeah.
What are your
that's-
thoughts? Yes.
So there's a few honorable mentions that I want to put in here. Dune was also my favorite, but I have a few little extra things in here. Like I loved the new Candyman. I thought it was so unbelievably artful, and these shadow puppets in here were actually done by a company who specializes them. They are not digital; they're actual shadow puppets.
Real
that they
shadow
did.
puppets. That's so,
So-
cool.
Really cool use of that in the film, and just this film is so beautiful and really well staged. It's actually about an artist and the art world, so it does have. Look at this. I mean, I could watch a whole movie of this.
Yeah.
It's insane. So this was a really, really powerful film, and they have a little bit of tie-in with the original Candyman, but it's next level. The original Candyman I still love because it's got that cool campiness and just Tony Todd was so
yeah.
great.
It's great. Yeah.
And you think, how can they top that? But they do. The director and female director did such a great job making this just more emotional and deeper. And they used a little bit of the history and the mythology of the original film, and they brought it in. We still have the bees. We still have lots of cool little hints of the first film. But this is its own thing. You don't have to see the first film. There are Easter eggs you might not get. but you don't have to see the first film to appreciate this movie. But it's just beautifully acted, incredible actors, so I definitely highly recommend this film as a cool, not super gory, but still it's a horror movie. So, and Nia DaCosta, is that her name? I should know this already. Really, really great job. And just this is one of her first films, so just like blew me away. Like
Wow.
just
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
I have
It
not
looks really
seen
good.
that one either.
Sure.
There's a few things I got to see now.
I know. My God.
There's so much.
Let's see, what
Yeah.
else did I put in here? Let's see. We have this. Let's just add it to the stream so I can remember what it is. So this is Dune again,
Dune.
right? So we love Dune. Let's throw that in there. A little more clip from Dune. So I want to call out Succession right now because this season has just been absolutely spectacular, like so intense. Like you're watching it and just want to curl up in a fetal position watching us, and it's just talking. It is basically talking and walking. And the dialogue is so cutting and so brilliant, and I just can't get enough of this show. It's so freaking good. So everybody watch the Succession this season. It's just been spectacular. And then a little thing, I know I'm kind of taking over here right now, but a little show I just want to give a little nod to is this thing, and not a lot of people have heard of it, but it's called The Other Two, and it's basically about the brother and sister of this, sort of Justin Bieber kind of sensation who takes off. So it's mostly, you're seeing the Justin Bieber character, but what it really is about is a brother and sister and how they're overshadowed by him. It is so funny and so well written. This is like, he wants to be an actor. He's the brother and he's really sad. And you have the sister who's kind of a disaster, and they're trying to make their way, but they're so overshadowed by their famous brother, and they can't quite find their footing. Really, really well written, really funny. So if you're wanting some kind of really kind of edgy, it can be raunchy, a little bit of comedy like that, I would highly recommend The Other Two. It's really super great.
I want to throw in an honorable mention to a series, a documentary series by our friend Joe Berlinger about a hotel that's right down the street from here. Downtown is a place that I've filmed it. I've worked on films in that place and been around it and stuff. It's always been kind of a weird, edgy presence in the downtown scene. If you've done a lot of location shooting downtown Los Angeles, the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah.
And hello friends. Hello friends from India.
It's midnight in India right now.
Oh, and you're up. Wow.
They're
watching us.
up. Yeah.
But yeah, the Hotel Cecil is definitely a bizarre
Really
story. It's interesting because it starts off and you're going, wow, yeah. And then you start realizing how you got sort of suckered into believing something that may not necessarily be true, maybe sensationalized or whatever. Yeah. And interestingly, I bring this up not just because it's a great documentary and not just because our good friend Joe Berlinger made it, but just recently, just a few days ago, it was announced that they've turned the Hotel Cecil into affordable housing for homeless people. So they've actually done something really, and it didn't, cool. Nobody can complain about their tax dollars or whatever. It was it's a good humanitarian effort, and I think it's a good use for a place like that. It's like other, a lot of people might not want to stay there now because of that series, and or a certain type of people might, but a lot of people might think, oh, that's a creepy place. But homeless people, they don't really have much choice in a lot of cases. So
I learned a lot about Skid Row watching that documentary, and it wasn't really about Skid Row, but it was in that area, and that's why the crime is so hard to solve there, because it's like there's just so many risks and so many,
Skid Row, it was all about putting homeless people all in LA into this 10-block radius, which was known as Skid Row. And of course, that has ballooned to a lot larger, and Hotel Cecil's right in the middle of it. So why not use the 700 rooms? I mean, it's 700-room building.
Yeah.
Put people in there and get them off the streets. It makes perfect sense. It's another
just keep
chapter
them off the roof. That's all we're asking.
Yeah.
Or in the water tower. Yeah.
Exactly.
One more honorable mention is I have to mention, it's been a big year for Korean series. Like, of course, Squid Game.
It's like PM Modi read your mind.
Ah, yes. Well,
Squid Game.
Squid Game's great. I also love
good.
Hellbound, which is not as popular but it's by the Train to Busan guy, because it's a lot heavier. It has to do with religion and how humans are the worst monsters in the world, worse than the
They
actual
are,
monsters
by the
in
way.
it.
They are.
And it's very smart, very intense, very kind of bloody and over the top. But I was mesmerized by it. The first episode is kind of not great, but the last 5 are brilliant. Hellbound. Yeah, kind of
Hellbound.
lost. Yeah, really good. But Squid Game was hugely popular and
Game,
hugely
massive.
fun and
I
very
really liked Squid Game.
smart. Yeah, it was really
Really
good.
great sets. Like I loved how they took childhood games and made them huge. Like it was
And it
just
was-
this
And it was much
really
more than that.
fanciful. No, it was a
but
lot
it's-
more than
it's
that.
so much more than that. It was like, wow, this is really smart. It's just
Yeah.
not sort of like this booby trap, how do you get through the maze thing? It's much more than that. So it's really smart. So whatever they're doing in South Korea, keep it up because it's great stuff.
Totally.
No.
So those are our
Wow.
suggestions for the year. I know it was long. We had a lot to say, but my gosh. Oh, and here's Pia Modi has another trailer suggestion, which we absolutely will get to.
Yeah.
We
You
love
should
trailer
see
reactions.
you
We
should
got
see
that
the
coming
list
up.
I have. Oh my God, it's like 50 films,
So-
but we'll get to them. We will.
We will, and we're gonna watch the actual films too. We're not just gonna do trailers.
We're going to play the trailer and we're going to react to that trailer.
So thanks you guys for showing up to our live broadcast. It was really fun. Thank you so much, and I'm so glad we had some great Indian people here. They were saying we
Yeah.
are from India. Hello,
Our
India.
new friends.
Love it. And thank you so much for everyone suggesting all these Indian films because we are super enjoying that also. So
Once
Great.
the pandemic is over, we're going to come visit, and I'm wondering if we could crash on your couch. Is that okay?
Yes.
we could stay with PM Modi. I think he said we
Yeah.
could.
But no, it's it's really wonderful to sort of experience new films and see stuff and see like,
Yeah.
my God, there's so much more to it than
So
our
much.
perception. At least
Yeah.
even my perception a month or two ago,
Yeah.
what Indian films were. It's so much more.
Mhm.
So thank you for
And like we
opening the
say,
door.
that is exactly what Cinemondo has always been about. Our
Yeah.
entire history has been about the whole world of movies, and we love having a door opened for us and
Yes,
to
thank
have
you.
new things shown to us.
So
Because
we'll
we
definitely
may
keep our eyes
look
open.
like we know everything, but we don't.
We seriously don't.
I
And
don't
so
look that way.
we'll keep an eye on our channel because we're going to be doing a lot more Indian films and Indian trailer reactions. And
Yeah.
you guys, I'm telling you, please watch them because these films are crazy. They're really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. See
Crazy
you
good.
next time.
Thanks. Don't forget to
Take
like,
care,
comment,
everybody.
subscribe. See ya.
Bye.